Ntundama State Residence, where we are having this edition of the State House Brief, and would like to thank you for coming. It's the first time after several months that we are meeting live like this. We have been holding these meetings virtually, and it's great to see you all this morning. Once again, welcome. Just a few housekeeping issues before we go into the main agenda for today. We are having sometimes delays in clearing people at the gates because sometimes the names come late. So I would ask that if you can cooperate, that if we can have all the names by Saturday or Sunday morning, so that it takes also a lot of time for us to do the clearance. So we cannot have people submitting their names on Monday morning. It causes confusion. So I just want to appeal, if you know that you are coming to the State House Brief, please send us the names Friday or Saturday morning, so that you have a smooth entrance of the gates. And this is our sincere appeal. We want to serve you better, but for us to serve you also better, and that you do not stay at the gate for some time, please, as we have been asking all the time, give us the names as you're going towards the weekend. Give us the names so that by Monday everything is smooth and ready to go. But once again, thank you so much. This is how we will proceed this morning. We will have a brief of the President's activities in the past 2 weeks, and how the next 2 weeks are looking like. Then we will take some of your questions. This juncture, allow me now to call upon Mr. Sean Kampodeni, Executive Assistant to the President and also the Director of Communications. Sean.
Thank you, Mr. Brian Banda, Press Secretary to the President. Members of the press, welcome and thank you for joining us. And it's great to see you in person. It has been some time, and we are definitely delighted here at State Residence to have the press with us in person. We're grateful to God as well for His mercy on Malawi with regard to the pandemic. Grateful to health officials who have worked tirelessly around the clock to see to it that the pandemic is being well managed, and that the public is engaged in responding to guidelines, so that positivity rates of the infection are constantly going down. And so it is great credit also to members of the public for responding accordingly, observing curfews, wearing masks in public, sanitizing hands, and so forth. And so it's a collective effort to make sure that the pandemic does not decimate our country and our economy any more than it already has. And so when people work together in this fashion, it allows us to enjoy the fruits, such as the resumption of these gatherings, howbeit with some precautionary measures in place. And so welcome, and to Malawians everywhere, both in the diaspora as well as Malawians here at home, from Sanje to Chitipa, we welcome you, and we count it an honor to be able to bring you these updates and tell you about what your president is doing and has been doing, so that you can be confident that you have elected into office a government that continues to be accountable to its bosses, the people who voted last year. So on that note, we are not too far from the 1-year mark since President Lazarus Chakwera took office. And it was June 23 when Malawians of age who were registered to vote in the fresh presidential election went to the polls and cast their vote and voted for this president to be the one that serves. And so we are coming up to the 1-year mark, and we are looking forward to being able to give you updates at that material time of some of the landmark accomplishments of this administration within its first year. But the focus of this particular brief is the President's activities last 2 weeks and next 2 weeks. And so on that note, allow me to brief you on the same. 2 weeks ago, on Monday the 17th of, that wasn't 2 weeks ago. On Monday the 17th of May, the President traveled south to the city of Blantyre, and he was going to have a number of engagements there, both in-house as well as public engagements. And so of particular note is he's presiding over the second congregation of Malawi University of Science and Technology in the district of Cholo. And the President learned with shock after the graduation ceremony, which was a beautiful ceremony over there, Kwagwanji. He learned with sadness and shock of the passing of a student named Aisha, who died in a fatal accident in Cheu on her way from the graduation. And so the President sends his condolences to the family, as well as the Must community. But the President was delighted to be able to participate in that. He was installed as Chancellor for Malawi University of Science and Technology on the occasion, and he has been going through this process of being installed as Chancellor for the public universities. Now, last year he had communicated through a radio address that he believes that it is his responsibility, as part of his promise to reduce presidential powers, to move towards the dispensing of the chancellorship being associated with the presidency. However, these things are regulated by law, and so the laws are being reviewed so that they can be changed by Parliament. And once that has been done, then the President would no longer be Chancellor of these public universities. But while the laws that are needing to be changed are enforced, the President is bound by law to be installed as Chancellor and for him to preside over these commencement ceremonies. And so he's delighted to do so, because he campaigned on the platform of the rule of law. And so even when the President feels that a law needs to be changed, and while he's working on changing the law, in the course of doing that, he continues to abide by the laws that are currently in force. So that's why he has continued to do those things. On that Tuesday, the 18th, in the afternoon, the President met with the chair of the Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority, Mr. Leonard Chikadia, in order for the President to gain an understanding of some of the things that are going on with the fuel contracts in the country, because the President is very concerned about this matter. He wants it resolved. The President, as you might recall, back in September or so of 2020, he appointed boards for both Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority as well as National Oil Company of Malawi. He appointed boards for those, and there are chairs for those boards, and the President expects both to do their jobs and to avert any kind of crisis in this country. And so now the President is hopeful that both boards and chairs of the two boards will find a solution to the situation while there is still time, because the President is ready to assist in any way possible to ensure that there is a seamless transition in the contractual agreements for the supply of fuel to the country, without interfering in the processes that need to be done by the boards and those institutions. So the president was happy to get an update from the chair of MERA, just as he has gotten updates from the chair of NOCMA previously. And so on Wednesday, the president left Blantyre to return to the capital. This is Wednesday the 19th, and so he was traveling that day for the most part. And then on Thursday, he had some engagements, beginning with an update on the security situation in the country from his Deputy Minister of Defense. You might recall that the president is the Minister of Defense in the Malawi government, and his deputy in that ministry is Honorable Jean Sendeza. And so she came to give the president an update on the security situation in the country and to seek some guidance and directions from the president on how to address them. I cannot go into the details of those security matters because they're matters of national security. However, following that meeting, the president had an interface with the state vice president, Right Honorable Dr. Saulos Chilima, who came to brief the president on the status of the assignment the president had given the vice president to form a task force, and for that task force to use a period of 90 days to review 5 things. The president's direction to the task force, led by the vice president, was for them to review the government system of allowances, the government system of procurement, the government system of employment contracts for civil servants, and also to review and make recommendations related to conditions of service for public servants, and lastly, to make recommendations of changes to the structure of the whole civil service. So it was painstaking work. The vice president and his task force put together a report with those recommendations. It's a report that is quite comprehensive, and the president is combing through that report meticulously to study all of those recommendations, to ascertain the feasibility of all of those recommendations and so forth. So the vice president came to see the president and brief him on the same before he would have an engagement with the entire task force and hear a methodical presentation of the task force findings and their recommendations. So the president had that engagement on that Thursday, the 20th of May. And then following these engagement with the state vice president, the president met with the newly appointed Director General of the Anti-Corruption Bureau, Ms. Martha Chizuma. As you might recall, the president's party and other Tonsi Alliance parties, through their MPs, have worked tirelessly in the legislature to see that this appointment, which the Malawian people have confidence in, the president appointed Ms. Martha Chizuma, who has been operating as director, as the ombudsman in the Malawi government. The president appointed her to be the new Anti-Corruption Bureau director. But her appointment had been rejected by PAC, Parliament's Public Appointments Committee, but that issue was then reviewed, and PAC decided to rescind its decision. And so she was duly confirmed, and the president met with her on the afternoon of Thursday the 20th to wish her well in her new assignment and to tell her that even though he appointed her, he expects her to work independent of any political interference. And he gave her that assurance that she can expect the Chakwera administration to fully fund the operations of the Anti-Corruption Bureau, as has been the case since the president took office, but also she can work independently and do whatever she thinks is best for the country in order to deliver on the desire and demand of the Malawian people for corruption to be dealt a death blow as a matter of urgency. And so they had that engagement. It was brief and cordial, and so that took place on that afternoon. The president also met with the board chair of the National Economic Empowerment Fund, NEF, which is the replacement institution for providing loans to young people and women that took the place of the MEDEF. And so the president met with the board chair because the president is concerned about murmurs of discontent that he's hearing from young people and women around the country that some of the operations of this fund and the disbursements are not going according to the president's timeline. And so the president wanted to hear what is going on the inside of NEF, so that whatever issues are there that are hindering the timeous disbursement of these funds can be addressed as a matter of importance. So he had that engagement with Mr. Ndema, who is the chair of the board for NEF. The president closed his day on that Thursday, which was a busy day, as you can see, by engaging his chief advisors. You'll recall that the president has 5 chief advisors, and so he engaged with them on that day in order to hear their thoughts on some of the decisions that the president has to make. The following day, Friday the 21st, the president received Vice President Dr. Saulos Chilima at Kamuzu Palace, together with the task force that the Vice President had put together in order to hear a presentation of the report of recommendations. Now, there has been some cause by certain quarters for the recommendations to be made public, and the position of State House on this matter is that the thing that is of public interest are the decisions that the administration makes using those recommendations. The president receives recommendations every day from the vice president, recommendations every day from his ministers, recommendations every day from his advisors, recommendations every day from members of his party, recommendations he receives every day from his partners in the Tonse Alliance. He receives recommendations every day from his friends. He receives recommendations from NGOs and CSOs. And it is not the president's practice to put recommendations in the public when they haven't been vetted and used to make decisions. The thing that the president is interested in putting in the public are the decisions that he makes in order to transform the public service in partnership with the Minister of Public Sector Reform, Right Honorable Dr. Saulos Chilima. So the two of them had initially announced that they were going to do the report on the recommendations publicly, but then they realized that that actually would be counter to their standard practice of processing recommendations internally and then only making public the decisions they make of what to do about the recommendations made. So that's why you may have noted a change in the program on Friday, that it wasn't public. The report was submitted to the president internally and in camera, and then discussions are already underway as various stakeholders who need to deliver on the decisions the president makes on this matter to engage them to make sure that when decisions are made using these recommendations, then those who are tasked with the delivery of those things do so, and then the public can be engaged on what has actually been decided, even if there might be little tweaks from what was recommended initially. So that's the explanation on that. In the afternoon, the president met with the Minister of Justice because some of these recommendations that get made have legal implications, because there might need to be a change in laws and so forth. And so the president was very eager to engage the Minister of Justice right away and begin to get some of his thoughts on how those things can be done and how they can proceed. And so the president would not would only engage the public on these matters once the decisions have actually been made on what to do, when to do it, and through which agents of the state to do it. And then the president would fully explain what he is doing to the Malawian people at a time that is appropriate. I hope that makes sense. The president closed this day on Friday by a meeting with the Secretary to the President and Cabinet. And then on Saturday, the president spent all day meeting his cabinet. The president has had 2 Saturdays in a row where he has met with cabinet. He met them he convened cabinet on Saturday the 15th, and then he convened cabinet again on Saturday the 22nd. In fact, this is the first time he has done this, to have 2 meetings back to back, separated by 7 days, because there is a lot of business that the president wants to move expeditiously on. You might recall that the president delivered his State of the Nation address in Parliament not too long ago, and when he did, he titled his address Accelerating the Change Malawians Fought For. And so the president has hit the ground running ever since he delivered that State of the Nation address, in order to move with speed and to move others to move with speed. And so he has been fully immersed in cabinet business in order to make sure that those he entrusts to run with the vision he cast for the country in that State of the Nation address are doing so in a manner that is befitting the kind of speed Malawians are looking for. And so he was in that meeting all day, and then on Sunday the president went to church, but in the afternoon he met some political leaders from the eastern region in order to hear some of their concerns, because the president is planning to go to the eastern region in the near future, probably in the course of the next few weeks or so, and he wanted to just hear what are some of the concerns in that region, so that when he goes there, he is a little bit more intentional about focusing on the issues that matter to the people there. Now, today is Monday the 24th of May. Presently, as we speak, the president is in a virtual meeting with members of the SADC Parliamentary Forum. Ever since the turn of the century, I believe it was 2004, there has been a movement to form a SADC parliament. But there have been 5 attempts to form the SADC parliament that have not been successful, because the summit had misgivings about certain components of the proposals. This particular engagement the president is having is designed to resuscitate the mission to form a SADC parliament, and in a different fashion than what has been proposed prior to this. And so the president is with the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Catherine Gotani Hara, presently, and her deputy, Honorable Kazombo, MP. And together they are engaged in this virtual summit with members of the SADC Secretariat, as well as members of the SADC Parliamentary Forum, which has formed a task force, and the task force has speakers from 6 or 7 SADC nations who are lobbying member states to support the formation of a parliament for the SADC bloc, which is going to be a consultative and deliberative body rather than a legislative one, at least to start with. And so the president is having that meeting right now, and hearing those thoughts, because, as you know, the president is 2 months away from assuming the chairmanship of the SADC bloc, and he is keeping track of all of the salient issues that affect the SADC bloc, including this one, so that he can take care of those things when he is chair, because he will be inheriting all of those issues. And then this afternoon, the president is going to meet with Dr. Po Chinchin, president of the African Bible Colleges, and he's also going to address the high-level session of the least developed countries, because they are beginning to make preparations for the summit for the 46 members of the least developed countries forum. That summit is going to take place in January in Doha, Qatar, and the president is chair currently of the LDC, and so he's going to be addressing the people he's going to be working with in order to prepare for this summit that's coming up in about 8 months' time in the Gulf. And so he has that summit taking place at 4 p.m. today, and he's going to be giving an address to the same. And then off the back of that, he's going to meet with his secretary from OPC, Mr. Zanga Chikosi, in order to follow up on some of the issues that are pending in the president's office and need to be executed with speed as per the president's wishes. Tomorrow, Tuesday, the 25th of May, the president is going to meet with the Tobacco Commission together with the Minister of Agriculture. As you might recall, several weeks ago the president opened the tobacco marketing season, and on that occasion he gave several directives to the Minister of Agriculture to work with the Commission to address certain systemic problems through the industry, including child labor and forced labor, so that the tobacco industry in Malawi can be cleared, because some of the products that we produce here in the tobacco industry are not allowed into certain markets because of allegations that the industry here is tainted with forced labor and child labor, and the president wants those things addressed by the end of this year. So he's engaged with the Minister of Agriculture to follow up on the directives that he gave on that occasion. And then tomorrow afternoon the president is going to be preparing for his appearance before Parliament. The president had promised on the campaign trail that he would honor and comply with the constitutional requirement for him to go to Parliament and answer questions. And so on Wednesday, the president is going to be appearing before Parliament. He is following, it might seem like he is busy doing other things, but while he's doing all of these things that I have said, he's at the same time tracking the debates on the floor of Parliament, so that on Wednesday when he appears before the National Assembly, he can actually weigh in on some of the issues that have come up from members. And so he will be making that appearance on Wednesday, the 26th of May at 2 p.m. So tomorrow afternoon, Tuesday, he will be spending his afternoon preparing for that appearance. But he will close the day on Tuesday, the 25th, by participating in an AU virtual discussion called Auda NEPAD. And so that is the president's diary for this week. And I've taken you up to Wednesday, I believe. And with those few remarks, I thank you for your time, and I leave you in the hands of the press secretary, Mr. Brian Banda, who will now take questions from members of the press who have gathered here. Good morning, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Director, and for spending some of your time to address the media on the President's engagements in the past 2 weeks, and also looking ahead to the next few days. Sean did mention that the President has chief advisors, and I'd like to acknowledge one of the chief advisors who is also here with us this morning, Mr. Chris Chakwera Banda, who handles strategy, manifesto implementation, and international partnerships. We want to thank you for being with us this morning. Well, on that note, we will now take some of your questions. May you please raise up your hand, and the media house that you are representing. We'll start with Mr. Hape Saka and Taonga, then we'll move to the lady at the back. Mr. Saka, you have the floor. Do we have a moving microphone?
Thank you, Brian. Good morning once again. My name is Hape Saka. I'm a freelancer journalist. Brian, I've got 3 questions. First one is on the issue recently happened. During this year's Kamu's Day Memorial Service, the President made a vowed speech complaining on how some government officers wait for him to push them to perform their duties. Does the speech insinuate that the President is facing internal resistance to effect the change he wants to implement under his leadership? Right? The second question is on the issue of make Malawi Electoral Commission, the issue of constituency demarcation exercise. Brian, you may actually recall that this is a very, very important issue that has been actually the media. There are calls from section of Malawians against the impending constituency demarcation exercise by the Malawi Electoral Commission. They're saying adding more constituency will only increase government wage pay on elected officers. What's the personal take for the President on this issue? Lastly, Brian, on the issue of the appointment of Ms. Martha Chizuma, I understand it has been a hot issue. But now, I wanted to find out that this has been now confirmed as the incoming SB boss. Is the President pleased that his fight on corruption has been boosted on this one? Brian, I would really appreciate if you can actually tackle this question in Chichewa as well, for the sake of our friends who really understand Chichewa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Saka, for your 3 questions. I will start with the last one. Asaka mukufunsa kuti kodi mmene Mai Chizuma anawachita appoint a president and achitidwa confirm ndi parliament. A president akumva bwanji, sijo nchifunso lanu. Akumva bwanji. A president akumva bwino. Koma nimafuna ndinene kuti a president adzakhala okondwa pamene bungwe la Anti-Corruption Bureau liyambedi kugwira ntchito mothana ndi katangale, posayang'ana nkhope, posayang'ana kumene munthu akuchokera, posayang'ana kuti munthu ndi wachipani chanji, posayang'ana kuti munthuyo amatani, because dziko la Malawi likufunika kuthana, and the president akhala kunena nthawi ndi nthawi kunena kuti china chimene chedwetsa kwambiri mdziko muno ndi nkhani ya katangale. Ndiye a president adzakhala okondwa kwambiri panopa, sanga onetse kukondwa kwawo, koma kukondwa kwawo kubwera Mai Chizumawo akayamba kuthanadi ndi katangale. Funso lanu lachiwiri mukufunsa kuti a Malawi Electoral Commission ali pakalikiliki pa nkhani ya ma constituency, kugawa ma constituency. President Chakwera nthawi zonse akhala kunena kuti he is always on the side of the law. Amalemekeza malamulo oyendetsera dziko lino. So ku Malawi Electoral Commission iko amanena kuti pakatha zaka 5 zili zonse adziwunikanso ma constituency ewo. So mwina kwa zaka 20 tsopano sitidaunike ma constituency ewo. So a president view yawo ndionena kuti tilemekeze malamulo. Ngati anthu sakukondwa ndi malamulo, ndiye pali njira imene anthu amatani amagwiritsa ntchito. Akhozochita lobe aphungu a nyumba ya malamulo kuti asinthe malamulo amenewo. Koma kunena kuti poti zinthuzo zikutenga ndalama zambiri, democracy ndi malamulo ndizofunika kuzitsatira kwambiri makamaka malamulo ngofunika kuwatsatira kwambiri akhoza kuoneka ngati kuti ndizodula koma President Chakwera will always nthawi zonse stand on the side of the law koma amene akunena kuti zimenezi zidonongera ndalama ndiye atsate njira zoyenera kuti mwina tisama chite review ma constituency koma for now malamulo akunena kuti tizichita review every 5 years so a president will support Malawi Electoral Commission in fulfilling that call kuti malamulo kuti ma constituency adzionekedwa mbuyo musizi machitika koma president because ndi President Chakwera chifukwa choti amatsatira malamulo ndipo amalemekeza malamulo awachita support a Malawi Electoral Commission in fulfilling that role. Kodi kulankhula kwa Chakwera kukamuzu day zikutanthauza kuti kodi kuli resistance a President Chakwera akhala kunena mona kunena kuti he wants to transform this country iwo amene anga wachedwetse kuchita transform this country ayikidwa pambali ndipo olankhula ananena kuti this train yanyamuka amene angafune kuichedwetsa train iyi imene amalawi akwera kuti tipite kutsogolo ndiye kuti angoyima pambali whether it's a civil servant kaya ndi ndani aliyense amene achedwetse boma ili in moving ahead ndiye kuti mnangotsika koma President Chakwera is focused in making sure that Malawi is developed and he is going to do that. I don't know if that answers your questions. Let's take some questions. Mr. Taonga from Times.
Zikomukambiri Brian, dzina langa ndi Taonga Sabona nimagwira ntchito ku Times ndi mafunso awiri. Funso loyamba Sean anayesera ndithu kuli fotokoza mchizungu ndakakonda kuti lidakafotokozerwa be mwina njije wachomveka bwino. Pali nkhani yokhudzana ndi report limene gulu limene president adalipanga recommend kuti lifufuze za mboma zokhudzana ndi the civil service nkhani zakatangale za ma contract amboma ndi zina zotero. Tinaona gulu limene lijalukapereka report limenelo lachisanu lapitali kwa president. Ndi malingaliro amalawi ambiri analiyo kuti tione ndithu report limene likubwerera pambalambanda potengera kuti mgwirizano watonse umanena kuti umapanga zinthu poyera. Pofotokoza pake Sean anafotokozapo kuti khanga timwina zimene zivutirako ndeto kukhulupirira kuti mufotokoza bwino nchichewa kuti amalawi onse amene amava chichewa amve bwino omwe za nkhani imeneyo. Funso lina ndikuti pofotokoza pawo director anafotokozaponso kuti sabata yatha president anakumana ndi wapampando wa bungwe la mera pofuna kupanga sort out nkhani zokhudzana ndi ma contract amafuta ndi anafotokozaponso kunena kuti president ali ndi chikhulupiriro chokuti body ya nokma ndi body ya mera ndi zimene zingathe kupeza solution ku mavuto amenewo. Koma sabata latha lomweli linali tsiku loweruka tinaona a komiti ya nyumba ya malamulo akunena akupereka go ahead ku bungwe la nokma kuti liyambe kuyitanitsa mafuta ku makampani amene anasankhawo zomwe mwina zosemphana ndi malamulo amene amanena kuti ntchito imene yakuyenera kupanga ndi mera osati a komiti. Sindidziwa ngati mtsogoleri wa dziko lino akudziwa zimenezi ndipo pamenepo mawu ake angakhale otani. Zikomo kwambiri.
Zikomo kwambiri ino Taonga kuchokera ku Times chifukwa cha mafunso anu awiri. Nimafuna ndi fotokoze nchichewa nkhani ya report. A president pa 14 February panali pa Valentine's Day anawalamula vice president kuti achite set up committee kuti unike nkhani za allowance, nkhani za government structure komanso ma systems zimene zinthu zimayendera procurement. Ndipo patatha masiku ochepa a vice president analengeza committee imene agwira nayo ntchito, and I think on the 25 of February anayamba meeting yawo yoyambirira. Within 65 days, a president anapatsa 90 days, but within 65-70 days anapezeka kuti ntchito ija ayimaliza. Office ya a vice president inalengeza kunena kuti report likaperekedwa pachisanu, koma atakhala pansi nkulingalira anaona kunena kuti report limeneli liperekedwe internally. Director ananenanso kunena kuti President Chakwera amalandira ma recommendations kuchokera kwa anthu osiyana-siyana, amipingo, nduna zaboma, office of the president and cabinet, and my chief advisors, Malawi so amalankhula kudzera mawayiresi, ma television, kaya masamba ocheza, a president amaona zonse zija, amamveranso zimene Malawi akulankhula. Tsopano chimene a vice president anadza chita ndikunena kuti aonane kaye ndi a president awafotokozere kuti ntchito munatipatsa ija tayendako chonchi, ndipo mwambo umenewo unachitika. Why internally chinafunika kunena kuti committee ija apereke report chifukwa ntchitoyi adawatuma ndi a president Chakwera, ndipo munthu ukatumidwa kuti ndimafuna mundi yenderera ya kumundaku umanena kuti kumundaku ndinabwera ndapeza kuti zili chakuti mwakuti. So zimayenera kukhala choncho, andi awiriwo ndiwomvetsetsana pa nkhani imeneyi, palibe vuto lina lililonse. President Chakwera and Vice President Chilima akumvetsetsana bwino pamene ntchito imeneyi ikuyenera kuyendera. Chimene ndinganene nchakunena kuti President Chakwera aunika zimenezi. These are recommendations. Recommendations ndiye kuti tugenza kuti muna mutatere. Popeza ntchito adatuma ndi President Chakwera aunika zimene zija. Chimene Malawi auzidwe ndi the decision imene President Chakwera will make on the recommendations that he has received from the committee. Munga medanena kale kunena kuti anthu ambiri osiyana-siyana amapereka ndemanga zawo, their recommendations to the president. Koma si udindo wa a president kuti every recommendation imene alandira aime pa pulpit ngati pano kuti ahape saka andiuza kuti ndipange mwakuti, akulinji akunena kuti ndipange mwakuti. The president will only communicate the decisions that have been made on the recommendations that have been made by the committee. Ndiye sanda yanka mafuswana awiri. Lina ndila mera, yes. Nkhani ya mera kapena kuti nkhani za mafuta, President Chakwera anachita appoint board ndima apa mpando wao kunokma komanso ku mera. Siti kukhulupirira kuti Malawi tikufuna kuti president adzilowerera ndikumauza zochita anthu amene they have been appointed based on their competences. Sindikhulupirira kuti zimenezo a Malawi ndi zimene tikufuna. President Chakwera ali ndi chikhulupiriro cha thunthu kuti mabodi amaparasitiro amenewa agwira ntchito yawo bwino. President Chakwera wakhalanso akunena kuti ngati bodi sithandiza kuatengera Malawi kumene akuyenera kupita, there are two options. Ndiota bodiyo angochita resign kapena President Chakwera akhoza kusankha wena kuti athandize kugwira ntchitoyo. And this sanabise akhala kunena kuti if you cannot deliver, then siyani kapena tingosankha anthu ena amene angathandize. Koma President Chakwera ali ndi chikhulupiriro cha thunthu kuti bodi ya kumera, bodi ya NOCMA, potsata ndi their terms of references komanso malamulo mene ntchito wa imanenera, the board will do its job according one to the law and the zimene malamulo regulations zimawauza kuti achite without necessarily breaking the law. So President Chakwera believes kunena kuti the two boards will do their job competently in serving Malawians better. Because we should always remember that we are in these positions to save Malawians. Our fidelity is to the people of Malawi. So that's all what I can say on that matter. President Chakwera sadza bodi kuti aphwanye malamulo kuti ntchito yawo iyende ayi. One of the pillars imene President Chakwera amayikhulupirira is the rule of law. It's also in the super high five that he talks about all the time. So the boards will do their job according to how they're supposed to be done without breaking any law. To answer your question, President Chakwera has every belief, Mama Bodiwa, kuti they will do their job well. And if they do not do their job well, President Chakwera has the power to replace those boards. Not only at Mera, not only at NOCMA, even across the board. Ngati bodi si kuwathandiza a Malawi. President Chakwera, in serving Malawians better, he will have the liberty to replace those boards. Let's take, I promised you, Amai, please introduce yourself and the media house that you're representing.
Dzina langa ndine Medina Jiva kuchokera ku Timveni.
Yes.
Funso langa ndi nkhani yokudza NIF, ngongole ya NIF. Shoni anafotokozapo kunena kuti a president anakumana ndi wapampando wa bodi ya NIF. Komano mwina achinyamata kapena amene ali ndi interest yotenga ngongole kumeneko adikirire mpaka na liti kuti zinthu zilongosoke ku bungwe limeneli potengera kunena kuti zikumachitika kuti magulu ena kuti atenge ngongole akumatenga miyezi. Mwina amene anatsegula magulu mu January mpaka na lero ngongole sanatenge, pomwe ena akumatenga mwina mawika awiri okha zimapezeka kuti ndalama zawo zalowa. Ndezi zimene anafotokoza Shoni kunena kuti a president anakumana ndi wapampando wa bodi ya NIF kuti athandizane kuti akonze ena mwa mavuto amene ali ku bungwe limeneli. Zilenga nthawi yayitali bwanji chifukwa bungweli mgwirizano atonse utalowa kumene mboma linadzamitsidwa kaye kuti akoze zina ndi zina zimene zimachitika kusonyeza kuti zimene zina tene kuti nthawi imeneyo atayimitsa zimene amene akukonza sizinakonzedwe. My second question, the president signed and endorsed the youth manifesto prior to the 2019 elections. Is the president still committed to address the key challenges in the document?
Thank you very much, Madam Chira, for your questions. Nkhani ya NIF mnaifusa mchichewa ndi nkhani yofunikira kwambiri. President Chakwera akhala kulankhula kunena kuti, and I think 2 weeks ago tili ku Mzuzu pamene amatsanzikana ndi anthu a mumzinda wa Mzuzu anayankhulanso nkhani imeneyi kunena kuti chifukwa chimene boma lawo layikira NIF ndi kunena kuti achinyamata amalawi athandizike popeza ngongole, ndipo adawapempha kunena kuti asayang'ane kuti munthu akuchokera ku chipani chanji komanso pakhale equity in terms of mmene anthu angathandizikire. Your question ikuonetsa ngati kuti there are some challenges amene akuchitika kumeneko, ndikuwa kuti izi ndi zina zimene President Chakwera adzakhalanso akuyang'ana ndi kumafunsa kunena kuti kodi zinthu zikuyenda bwanji kumene kwa these meetings that are taking place is to making sure kuti aone kuti kodi zinthu zikuyenda bwanji kumeneko. Koma ndimafuna ndinene because I only speak for President Chakwera kunena kuti President Chakwera is committed in making sure kuti aliyense apeze ngongole zimenezi. Analankhulaso president kunena kuti pali ma conditions yena amene mwina kunifiko awaunike amene ndi olemera kwambiri. President Chakwera ananena kuti ataunika zimenezo kunena kuti Malawi adzithandizika asakhale ndi makolatero oopsa oti munthu sungathe kupeza ngongole. So all what I can say is that the President Chakwera akuunika mosamala zimene the developments coming out from NIF. Koma ndi cholinga chawo kunena kuti aliyense Malawi muno apeze ngongole zimenezi. Ma challenges amene mwanenawo President Chakwera is committed to ironing out those challenges in making sure kuti aliyense akuthandizika. But thank you for raising those questions because they also help us in following up on those particular issues. On the issue of youth manifesto, President Chakwera as an Akali president anadzichita commit, and that commitment still stands. And you can even see he continues to make key appointments to the young people. Examples zilipo zambiri. But to answer your question, yeah, because you asked if President Chakwera is still committed to the manifesto. Yes, he is committed. Achinyamata amakhala pa mtima pa President Chakwera nthawi ndi nthawi. Gordon Matonga, the nation. We have 7 minutes if we may keep time.
Right, a couple of questions. Number one, it's the same question which Taonga asked. I want to ask it differently.
Yes.
President Chakwera ordered a review of the way public sector is managed.
Yes.
Taxpayers' money was used, and the president, as Taonga rightly reminded you, has made a commitment to ensure that his government is very transparent. Now, the report which has been issued to the president was supposed to change the public sector, which is supposed to benefit every Malawian.
Yeah.
At what point will those recommendations be made available to Malawians? Are you closing the door to discussing those with the public forever, or there is a point where the president will say, Malawians, this is what I was told to consider? Is that going to happen, and when exactly is it going to happen? In the same vein,
can we because we don't want to lose the other thought. I'll give you another chance, but let's address that point because it's a very important question.
I'll give the mic if you
yes,
might allow.
keep the mic. What we are saying, and I want you to hear us very clearly. What we are saying is that these are recommendations. Do we agree that these are recommendations? You agree? Okay, so what we are saying is that these recommendations have been presented to the president. It's going to help the president in changing how things are done, one in procurement, in government systems, and a structure of government, and all the other aspects that the report is talking about. What we are also saying is that the report is only talking of recommendations. A president tiuganiza kuti apa mukanapanga chonchi, apa mukanapanga chonchi. Now, surely there are so many recommendations that we have been talking about. The president receives a lot of recommendations. What we are saying is let the president receive these recommendations, review them, look at them critically, and when he makes a decision based on these recommendations, the Malawi nation will be told. Yes. Yes.
The question I'm grappling with, why would it be a problem for the president to share those recommendations with the public? Yes, we accept that the president has ultimately the discretion to choose which recommendations are good for the country or not, or for his administration or not. But at the end of the day, admittedly, those decisions are going to be public decisions, and the recommendations are supposed to save Malawians. As part of a servant leadership philosophy, why is it so difficult to tell Malawians that these are what I've been taught, and this is what I've accepted, and this is not what I've accepted, so that people can hold the presidency accountable for the decisions which are going to be made, or for the time factor, for example. If it's noticed that maybe certain decisions are not being made, maybe when the public can.
So do you want the president to announce every recommendation that he gets? He gets recommendations from the religious.
For this one, we are interested because this was made public.
Yes.
The president told Malawians that I'm asking this task force to make these recommendations. I think that's the same spirit why we would like to see what the president has been advising.
Yeah, so what we are also saying is that when President Chakwera makes a decision based on these recommendations, the Malawi nation will be told. And that's our answer. Okay? President Chakwera has received the recommendations. He continues to review those recommendations. The only the decisions that are going to be made based on these recommendations by the special committee on the reviews will be communicated to the public. But I also want you to know, I also respect the point that these were done by the taxpayers' money. Ministers, senior government officials, principal secretaries, they give a number of recommendations to the president. Does the president stand on a podium and say, ndalandira malangizo kuchokera ku Minister of Agriculture kutipangemo kuti mwakuti? What the president communicates is the policy direction that he's going to take. So we are speaking the same language. What we are saying is that inuyo mufuna kuti president anene kuti special committee yanena kuti tipange chonchi. But uwu ndi uphungu chabe. Because because the president also has the liberty to say mwandipatsa langizo lakuti, but nditaona we are not going to take that route. We'll take this route.
I think that one we totally agree.
I'm glad that we agree.
We agree.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time. We'll give 2 more minutes to finish on that one.
You gave me an opportunity to respond, to ask the other questions which I wanted to ask. I think it is in the same spirit of holding the administration accountable for
and that's why we're here.
For the prejudice you have made. We have previously indicated that the government was reviewing the cabinet. Yeah. And up to now, we wanted to know whether there's an update on when exactly are we going to have the cabinet reappointed. Particularly, there are 2 vacant cabinet positions: the Minister of Transport and Minister of Labor. No, 3. If I'm sorry for that. When are we going to have those ones? And earlier on, in the same vein, the Director of Communications alluded to the fact that the President is still being forced to comply with the law to continue serving as Chancellor of various public universities because the law is yet to be reviewed in terms of fulfilling his campaign promises to stop being the presidency holding the chancellorship of the various universities. So I wanted to know, I think this question has been asked on this forum a number of times, and the answer which has been given is precisely what the Director of Communication indicated earlier on. So what I wanted to know is, in terms of the legal framework itself, in terms of envisaged change, what exactly has been done so far since the administration took power to change the law? I'll
start with the last one, and thank you very much for asking these questions, Gordon. The president is committed to have those powers taken away from him, being the chancellor of the universities. But the law has to change. He has asked the Minister of Justice to bring relevant bills to Parliament so that we start the process. So as we are speaking right now, the Ministry of Justice is busy also on the same. When they are ready, they will take those issues to Parliament so that Parliament can debate. How far they have gone, I also need to engage with the ministry to find out how far they have gone. I can come back to you maybe via telephone. The issue ya cabinet, it still keeps on coming, and we also got the same question in Nzuzu. What we have said is that yes, there are vacancies: Minister of Labor, Minister of Transport, and Minister of Local Government. Koma minister mosemo muli ma deputy ministers who are still doing their job. We have principal secretaries who are capable also to help the deputy ministers carry on with the job. The President Chakwera is aware that there are these vacancies. When he decides to fill those positions, we will communicate. You know. But these are things that we cannot push the president because it's his prerogative. These are his prerogatives. He can even decide he can decide to fill those positions today or tomorrow or next month. These are things that we cannot discuss here because Malamulo talks of the prerogative. Now, Nkhani cabinet, we have been addressing it, and I want to say, I hope this will give us the final closure in as far as this issue is concerned. President Chakwera promised kuti asinta cabinet. Then he decided kuti sinta. Or, like you remember of the first quarter that we talked about of 2021, using the same prerogative that he has, he can decide to come up with cabinet. He can also decide kuti mawandi sinta, but using the same prerogative, he can also say anane na zolozi ndaona kuti sindipanga. Sitinga muimbe mulandu president. Because he's using his prerogative. But I also said in Nzuzu that speaking to Times Television a couple of weeks ago, this question also came up. And the president said he's committed to bringing in a new cabinet. When he does that, we don't know. And it also falls under the prerogatives that the president has. When he decides to come up with a new cabinet, you will know. If he doesn't come up with a cabinet, considering that we have a cabinet now, because it is a cabinet yokulibe. Yesterday, on Saturday, there was a cabinet meeting the whole day. So cabinet ilipo. Then he decided not to do it at that particular time, simulandu, because he's exercising his prerogative. Akoza kunena kuti ndasankha cabinet lero, mawa nkunena kuti ndaona kuti andisinthe. He can also, using his prerogative, change that cabinet. So the cabinet is in its place. Tilindindo na zaboma who are work paliba amene wangu khala kunena kuti sagwira ntchito because there is an impending reshuffle. No, everybody is busy working. Let us also get this fact that we have a cabinet in place and cabinet ministers are working. When President Chakwera decides to come up with a new cabinet, you shall know. On that note, we would like to thank you, members of the press, for coming to Ntuntama State Residence this morning. It's nice to see you after some time. We will meet again. I just want to check. We should be meeting again. Yeah, we will meet again. Today is 24th of May, and we'll meet again on the 7th of June, on a Monday, the 7th of June of 2021. And as I said, please give us the names a Friday before that Monday so that we serve you well. Once again, on behalf of President Chakwera and the entire state.
That's the voice of Brian Banda.
See you on the 7th of June at 11 a.m. Thank you and God bless you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, we'd like to end the State House brief. for this day, Monday, the 24th of May. Thank you very much for all of you that joined us. Some joined us from very far, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for that support. If you have questions, if you had other questions that were not answered, please feel free to email Brian Banda at statehouse.mw. That's Brian Banda at statehouse.mw. He'll be happy to answer any outstanding questions that you may have had and did not have the opportunity to ask during this briefing.